You are listening to Prophet Pearls with Nehemia Gordon and Keith Johnson, exploring biblical prophecy for yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Shalom חברים שלנו, ברוכים הבאים לתוכנית פנינים מהנביאים. Shalom friends, welcome to the program Prophet Pearls with Nehemia Gordon and Keith Johnson. Keith, what does the word chaverim mean? Can you please explain to the people?
It means that you and I are working together, trying to find, with common ground and in what I call iron sharpening iron, an attempt to try to figure out what's going on with the Bible. And we've got Prophet Pearls happening here, and you've done the intro, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, Nehemia, I got to ask you a question. Yeah. When you were looking at this this section, give me your first response. The first thing you thought when you looked at Judges 4.
Honestly, the first thing?
Honestly. I want to hear the honest
So the opening word of Judges 4, it actually starts in verse 4.
Yep, it starts in verse 4.
It says, and Devorah. And honestly, the first thing that came to mind is there are a lot of Devorahs in my life. It's a very common name, Jewish name. And, it's funny, like, there'll be several different people I know that are named Devorah or Deborah or some form of that. And so it's like, wow, there it is. So
okay,
that's the first thing that came to my mind.
So, like I say, we do this in honor of all those Devorahs. How about that? Let's
and the
jump
word
right
Devorah
into it.
means?
Well, I think I know that it's got something to do with like a bee.
It means bee, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's a very cool connection with the word bee and the Holy of Holies in the temple, which is Devorah.
Aha.
And the place where the bee lives, now this is interesting because the place where the bee lives in Hebrew isn't called Devorah, but that must be where the word Devorah comes from, that the bee comes from the Holy of Holies, the hive, the Devorah. That's the central sanctum of the bee, and hence of the temple as well. But it's really interesting. I was actually talking just the other day. I was speaking in Seattle or in Tacoma, Washington, and somebody was saying to me, "Oh, those vowels, they're the Masoretes added those. They're not an original part of the text." And I said, "Okay, so if you want to ignore the vowels in Hebrew, then you take the three letters Daled Bet Resh, Devar, which is word." But then you change the vowels, and you could make that same word Devorah, which means bee. You can add a hey at the end, but you don't have to. With those three letters, you could have bee, you could have Devorah, which is plague. And I was speaking to this Messianic gentleman, and I said, you Messianics, you say that Yeshua is the Devar, the word of the Lord. And so if you ignore the vowels, then maybe he's the pestilence of the Lord. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the point is, if you ignore the vowels, you strip the words of all their significance and meaning to where it can mean the opposite.
Yeah. We had so many different experiences in talking about this, and maybe we can bring them in as we go. But I just remember the time that we were in Israel together, and we were addressing this issue of the vowels and how I just have to say, one of the things that you really don't understand until you actually are in the land and you're actually experiencing this with people, but they'll see a word that has just the consonants, like the newspaper. You're reading the newspaper, and there are no vowels there, and you're like, wait. How can they read the newspaper and there are no vowels? They're just consonants, and it's almost like you can't explain it. You can explain it, but experiencing it just brings it to a completely different level, and people understanding what the traditional pronunciation of a word would be, and knowing in context what that word means. It's just a phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, obviously, context is extremely important to know whether it's the pestilence or the or the word, or the bee, the bee of the Lord. That is important. But if you say, okay, I'm not going to use vowels, okay, so instead of Devar, it becomes Deborah, and Devorah becomes Deborah. Like what?
And so when you're throwing me a softball. So when it comes to the name like Yud Hey Vav Hey, the four letters Yud Hey Vav Hey, and all of these different vowel combinations that people use, that I just have to be honest with you, there's no end to how many different vowel combinations people add into the four-letter name of God, and that's just where it gets to me absolutely ridiculous.
One of the things I appreciated in your book is Hallowed Name Revealed Again, if I remember correctly. You wrote there that the people who say that they want to pronounce the name without any vowels, which would be like Yehovah.
Yeah,
right. And you said something like "Good luck with that."
Yeah, well, it really is interesting. I don't know. I just think the Hebrew language is it's just the way it evolved, the way that it lives today, the way that it's used. And I think people, one of the things that I've really been pushed by in the last couple of years is trying to give people a chance to interact with it a little bit, piece by piece by piece. And I'm finding that there are just as many people that are interested in finding out what something really does mean as there are the people that want to kind of use it for, as I call it, for their own agenda. So. So we're dealing with the 4 of 4, and I know we only deal with the Prophet Pearl section, but it's hard for me not to, at least if I can, just a little bit of context in Judges before we get started, because this idea that the judges, these people that were raised up to be judges, over a period of time, the person would judge, and then the nation would be under that judge for a while, and then the nation would turn, and then they would call out to Yehovah, and then he would respond and give them another judge. And in the first couple verses, it's just talking about that. And then,
Hello?
Yep,
I can hear you.
See?
I hear you the whole time.
Skype just quit.
I see. You. Now, Keith, I know you want to just jump into the story, but I think we should get some context first before we do that. Can we please go back real quick to verse 2?
Absolutely. Let's go to verse 2.
Okay.
Yes.
Or even verse 1. It says, "And Israel did, did evil in the sight of Yehovah, and Ehud died." He was the judge. And Yehovah sold them into the hand of Yavin, the king of Canaan, and who was the king over Chatzor. Chatzor is a major city in northern Israel. And his general was Sisera, and he dwelt at a place called Charoshet HaGoyim. Mm-hmm. It's a real interesting place in itself. Verse 3, "And the children of Israel cried out to Yehovah, the children of Israel cried out to Yehovah, for he had 900 iron chariots, and he was pressuring the children of Israel strongly for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So the context here is Devorah is this judge at a time when Israel is being persecuted by the Canaanites. Mm-hmm.
So this cycle that takes place is something we see over and over in Judges, where they're under a judge for a while, and then the judge dies, and they turn away from Yehovah, and then the judge is brought in, and it's a cycle back and forth. And I think what I thought was kind of interesting about this is that, we could go to the specifics and how it shows up in different parts of Judges, but this one is just, boom. Devorah. I mean, there she is. It doesn't say anything. When you read it, you understand what the situation is. But if you understand what's happening in the book, then obviously this is now a new, if I can call a new reign. So, it's a new political deal.
So what you're saying is, like, whoever decided on these prophet portions, in this case, he really he ripped out the context. The first 3 verses are really important. And why'd he do that? I don't know. Yeah. Good question.
We don't know. So let's get into this.
Yeah.
I mean,
so let's talk about this cycle. Yeah. So it's really interesting. So what we have is this. It's really a 4-stage cycle. Mm-hmm. So you've got the sin, and the sin leads to punishment, which is in the form of foreign oppression. Mm-hmm. Then the Israelites are being crushed under the this foreign oppression, so they cry out, and that's sort of their almost half-baked repentance. Mm-hmm. It comes from a place of need, not of, I was thinking intellectually I need to be good. It was more like, oh man, this hurts. Can you help us, God? Mm-hmm. And then that's the 3rd stage. And the 4th stage is the judge rises up and provides salvation. Mm-hmm. And we've had several of those and actually that pattern is described in the first couple chapters of Judges. Mm-hmm. And we had a number of judges. And then Devorah here is really an unusual judge, because the other ones judged and were military generals. Devorah, who appears here in 4:4, she is not a general. She's just the judge. And the prophetess, which is interesting. I don't think, if I remember correctly, any of the other judges were described as prophets.
I can't believe you're saying this. But I'm going to have an argument with you right here on the show. What are you talking about?
Wait, hold on a second. Let me go look. Am I wrong? Are they judges? Are they prophets? No, I'm right. I just checked it. What are you talking? Who else was a prophet?
No. You're right as far as a prophet, but you're tapping that computer.
Judges 6:8 talks about a prophet. So the first time the word prophet appears in the book of Judges is in reference to Devorah, and she's the only one who's described really as a judge and a prophet.
Yeah. But I don't understand what you're talking about, saying she's not a commander of an army. What do you mean by that?
No, she's not. What do you mean?
We'll get right into that. Let's get right into it.
Barak is the commander.
Okay, yeah.
She's not the
commander.
Let's
move on. No, we're going to have fun with this one, ladies and gentlemen. So
now, can we talk about where she where she did. It's interesting. So some people will tell you, oh, a judge was just a military general or a ruler. But here it actually says that she is, she is judging, and the people would come up to her for judgment in a specific place and a specific location. And what do you have in verse 4 where she would do her judging?
She says here, the prophetess, she says here, verse 5 is what it says for me.
Oh, so read verses 4 and 5.
Yeah, Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel. At that time, she held court under the palm of Devorah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim.
Okay. Go on.
And the Israelites came to her and to have their disputes decided.
Okay, now that's awesome, because it's not even like the same word appears there, and they just translate. Let me read what it says. And Devorah was a prophetess, or actually a woman who was a prophetess. She was the wife of Lapidot, and she was judging Israel at that time, and she was dwelling under the date palm of Devorah, between Ramah and between Bethel and the mountain of Ephraim, and the children of Israel would go up to her for judgment. So we have the word judgment twice there. Once is she was judging Israel in verse 4, and then verse 5 is they would come to her for judgment. And where she would do the judging is underneath this tree, under the this tomer, this date tree. And yours has palm. And I looked at all the translations, and with one or two exceptions, they almost all say that it's a palm tree, whereas in Hebrew it's a date tree. And date tree is a type of palm tree, but it's a more specific term. And date trees are really important in Israel. It's a land that doesn't have very many trees, and date trees are very important as part of the environment and part of the ancient economy, especially even the modern economy. You go down to the Jordan Valley and you see these massive plantations of palm trees, of date trees.
Can you do me?
So it's pretty cool.
Can you do me a favor while you do this? I want you to check your computer on something, Nehemia. And just in the book of Judges, you guys, this is amazing. He can tap this computer and context. But anyway, what I wanted to see is if there's an example where they use for the judge was leading versus judging, and I thought that was interesting in the NIV.
Oh, it doesn't say
it doesn't say lead. It says it was judging. Yeah. So what I was wondering though is in the English version. If there's an
you want me to check the English?
I wanted to see if there was an example, because I think there's an agenda here, and I'm going to be really clear about this. I just think when I'm reading in my NIV, and this is going to probably get me in a little bit of trouble, certainly with some folks, but I think it's sexist that basically with Devorah, the NIV here is saying, okay, well, she was leading. Now, if I really took some time and went a little further, sometimes I like to uncover where there are these sort of agendas. And like I've said before, what I like about the NIV language-wise in terms of the present English language, does a phenomenal job of using the present English language. What it does a bad job with is it picks and chooses when it wants to be clear in context, or when it wants to be what I call biblically authentic regarding the meaning of a word. And I think that happens a lot. And so a lot of the people, for example, that would be reading from the NIV, and you probably aren't aware of this, Nehemia, because you come from a different background. But there's an issue in Scripture sometimes as it comes to male and female, and regarding how far they'll go in terms of giving what a word will be in terms of its masculine or feminine and its meaning. With Devorah here, when it says that she was leading, it's obvious as you read the story that that's the case. But the cycle that we're talking about is not like she's she's a prophetess and by the way, she does a little bit of leading. No, she is as legitimate of a leader here, and even more so regarding adding the issue of prophet as any of the other judges.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with you. I don't think she's a leader.
Oh,
I think she's the judge. She's the prophetess, and we have this pattern. It's a pattern throughout the Bible.
She's a leader.
Especially in the times of the kings, where you've got Isaiah, and Isaiah comes and he's counseling Hezekiah, but Hezekiah is the leader. Isaiah is not the leader. She's Isaiah. She's not Hezekiah.
And this is why what's so funny.
She's not a leader.
What's so funny about this, and I'm so glad we're having this little tension here, is because the story itself, as we read it, actually I'm going to win this one, Nehemia. I'm actually going to win this one.
You're not, though. Okay. So Judges 3:10 is an interesting example, because there we have the verb to judge, and it says, "And the spirit of Yehovah was upon him." And he, literally in Hebrew it says, Vayishpot et Yisrael, and he judged Israel. In the King James we have, and he judged Israel. What do we have in the NIV? I don't know. Let's see. NIV says, and he became Israel's judge. Interesting. So why doesn't it say he led Israel? So you're saying this is some politically correct thing? I really don't know what you're trying to say.
We'll just keep, like I say, let's keep.
No, what are you trying to say?
I'm not going to try to say anything. Let me let the story say it.
Are you saying that she's the lead? So we got to talk about prophetesses in the Tanakh because we
let's do that.
Do you know who the prophetesses are?
I really don't. Tell me who they are. I mean, I'd like to hear.
So we've got 3 true prophetesses and 1 false prophetess. The first one is, and I'm referring specifically to people who are called a prophetess, a female prophet. In Hebrew, we have a word for that. There's Navi for men and Nivi'ah for women. So there's 4 people who are a Nivi'ah. There's Miriam. Miriam, the sister of Moses, is called a Nivi'ah. And then we have, well, come on, you tell me obviously we have Devorah, and who's the other one? She's the least known one.
She's probably the least known one. I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah. So she's Huldah in the time of King Josiah. You know that story. Come on. And the 4th one is really unknown. She's Noadiah, who's a false prophetess who tries to frighten Nehemia. That's me, Nehemiah. She tries to prophet Nehemia to frighten Nehemia from doing his mission. He mentions all the false prophets, and he mentions her by name. He's the only one he mentions by name in that context. There's another one he mentions by name who's a man. But in the context, can I actually read that? It's pretty cool. It's in, let's see, Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 14. I'm going to read the NIV just because you like to mess with it. It says, "Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, O my God, because of what they have done. Remember also the prophetess Noadiah," which in Hebrew is Noadiah, "and the rest of the prophets who have been trying to intimidate me." So she's the only one who's mentioned in that prayer. It's like Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who are trying to intimidate me. Isn't that interesting?
You know what I love about her name? I love about that very little known prophet is the root of her name. It's funny because I was this is like a long time ago. I was dealing with this issue of God's time, and then looking for this issue of where we have the issue, understanding his moed, and so
Right, for the people who don't know what's
moed. The moed. I mean, is appointed time, the appointed time that God has.
Right.
And so I was going through all of the different words and all the different things, and actually her name came up, and I didn't, and I really wasn't aware of who she was or whatever, but I thought it was just.
And there's the end of the program.
What happened?
No. Or keep going.
Oh, boy.
Okay. I mean, you were cut off.
Me. Hey, folks, let me tell you why.
You were cut off. You were saying something, and we missed it. So.
Okay, so, folks, let me just tell you what's happening here. We are now on our 4th attempt to
might be the 5th.
Maybe the 5th attempt to record this program, and so I'm really on. It's like really, really touchy. I can't just simply think about the passage. I'm also thinking about, is he hearing me? Are we recording? Are we cut off again? And this attempt right now is probably our last attempt for this program.
I think Noadiah is coming against us, and she's trying to stop us from meeting.
She doesn't want us to meet.
Because the root of moed is appointed time, but the literal root is to meet. And it's a time that you could meet someone, or it could be a place that you could meet someone.
Yeah, so her name.
So we have the tent of meeting, Oel Moed. Yeah. And we also, that was a word of the week, wasn't it? And we also have moed as an appointed time, a place of a time of moed. And that's actually really relevant for the whole story of Nehemiah. This is off. We're never going to get to do Nehemiah in the Prophet Pearl, so I'm going to steal a few minutes from Prophet Pearl to do Nehemiah 6, just a couple verses. Verse 10, it says, "Then I visit," and because that prophetess is there. Verse 10 says, "Then I visited Shemaiah son of Delaiah son of Mehitavel when he was housebound, and he said," and this is another prophet. He's a false prophet named Shemaiah. "Let us meet in the house of God," and there it says Nivaed. "Let us moed in the house of Yehovah, in the house of God, and let us shut the doors of the sanctuary, for they are coming to kill you by night. By night they are coming to kill you." I replied, "Will a man like me take flight? Besides," this is what Nehemia says, "besides, who such as I can go into the sanctuary and live? I will not go in." And that's because only the priests were allowed to go into the inner sanctuary, not Nehemia, who was he wasn't a priest. And so he's saying, "I can't even go in there. What are you talking about? And I'm not going to go in there for refuge." And he says in verse 12, "Then I realized that it was not God who sent him, but he uttered that prophecy about me, Tobiah and Sanballat having hired him, because he was a hireling, that I might be intimidated and act thus and commit a sin. and so provide them a scandal with which to reproach me. In other words, this was a trick to get him to go into the part of the temple. He was not allowed to go in. Only the Levites were allowed to go into a certain section, and beyond that, only the Kohanim, and beyond that, only the high priest, the high Kohen. And they were trying to trick him, say, look, if you go in there, then the bad guys coming to kill you won't kill you. And he was a false prophet. And isn't it amazing? The false prophet comes and tells him to do something contrary to the Torah, and he says, no, I'm going to follow the Torah. And then he figures out, oh, this guy wasn't even a true prophet, because a true prophet wouldn't tell me to violate the Torah. Exactly. And then in the next verse he says, oh my God, remember against Tobiah and Sanballat these deeds of theirs, and against Noadiah the prophetess, and against the other prophets that they wish to intimidate me. So isn't that cool? That's the context here of the fourth prophetess in the Tanakh. Of course, in the New Testament, in your book, Keith, you've got a prophetess. Do you remember about her?
Oh boy, tell me about her, Nehemia. You didn't even
No,
know.
there's a woman named Anna in the New Testament.
Of course.
But we'll leave that for a discussion of the Gospel of Luke. Let's go back to Judges chapter 4.
Okay. So, Judges chapter 4, and it says, and so it says here, the Israelites came to her. Now, okay, so let me slow down here. The Israelites came to the area around the tree where maybe she was. No, to her. It actually came to her to have their disputes decided. In other words, she is the judge. And she sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, now, so she's now sending for the commander of the army. And I mean, the commander of the army probably has a choice. I mean, why should I come if she sends? Well, because she's the prophet, right, Nehemia? She's the prophet. Is that right?
I mean, what are you asking?
No, I'm asking.
She's not just the prophet. She's the judge.
She's the prophet, and she's the judge. She's got.
I mean, you could call that a ruler. Okay,
she's running
I'll
the
accept
show.
that.
She's in charge. She's in charge. And so she calls the commander to come, and then she says, "The Lord Yehovah, the God of Israel, commands you." Go and take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali. And the read says here in Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. And so she's telling him now, it's like, can I paint the picture here? I want to be really clear about this. I want to paint the picture. So
is this Golda Meir? Is that what you're saying?
This is better than Golda Meir, okay?
Margaret Thatcher?
No, it's better than Margaret Thatcher.
Hillary Clinton?
No, so here he's out doing his thing, and then the phone call comes, the message comes, whatever you want to call. Devorah's calling. And what does he do? He drops everything he does. He goes to her, and she's got a word from Yehovah. Now, here's what I think is so interesting about this passage. And I really couldn't – I have to tell you, I mean, I want to do Bible trivia with you here and just see if you'd win the Bible trivia game. You probably will.
Nothing in the Bible is trivial to me.
Amen. They're all the top 50 verses. So it says here –
well, you can't make fun of that.
It says here, go take with you 10,000 men – of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. Now, first thing, can I slow down for, hey, all you ladies out there, let me just talk to the ladies for a second. She's telling him now, as the leader and the commander of the army, how many...
See, that's where we're disagreeing. I would say she's a political leader, perhaps. Maybe.
I'm not finished.
But she's not a military leader.
No, she's the military leader. And it says here, and she tells him how many men to take, where to do, where to go, how to do it, and she gives him a word from Yehovah. Now, this wouldn't go well in some of the denominations that are presently a part of, or over on this side of the world, Nehemia, because women don't get a chance to be in leadership positions, and they do a lot with the gymnastics regarding women's leadership, etc. I could talk about that for the entire.
You're talking about in China?
No. I'm sorry. What I meant is my tradition, where I come from. Women.
Okay.
So it says here. She tells him exactly how many men to take. She said, don't take 5,000, don't take 12, take 10. And then she says, I will lure, and she's speaking what Yehovah says, I will lure Sisera, the commander of Yavin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River and give him into your hands. And that could have been the end of the story. But then this is where the rubber meets the road, the next verse. And I'd like you to read it in the JPS or the Hebrew. Maybe there's some hidden issue here. Can you read the next verse and give me your best translation? And by the way, Nehemia, I really love it when you do translate directly from the Hebrew. I have to tell a story before you do the next verse. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I first met Nehemia, we had this issue, this crisis, and the crisis was we were in the old city of Jerusalem. This was about now, I don't know how many years ago. This was in 2002. We're in the old city of Jerusalem, and we're walking around, and I'm there on my second trip to Israel, but my first one was really in 1986 or something as a, sort of a just a newly, involved in the church, and I went on a regular tour, and did all the things, all the traditional sites you're supposed to go to. Well, on this particular trip, I'm there. I meet Nehemia, and he's from the Hebrew University, and he's going to take me on a tour of the old city of Jerusalem and some areas right around there. So I meet him, and we're talking. This is after we've had our interaction, for those who don't know, where he saw the Torah scroll. Like, I don't want to get into that. But the next day we're meeting. We're talking and we're walking along the old city of Jerusalem, and then we'd have Bible talk like we're doing now. It was chavruta. And I would say to him, well, such and such verse says, because folks who don't know, I have my master's degree from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. I graduated cum laude. I'm supposed to know this book inside and out. And so I'm with this guy, Nehemia Gordon, who's walking around with these funny pants on and this funny looking hat. And I'm like, I can't take this guy serious. So I decided to challenge him. So I'd bring up a verse, and I'd say to the verse, well, it says in 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse such and such. And he says, well, let's just open and see what that says. And I was getting offended by this guy, because every time I'd bring up the Bible, he'd say, well, he wouldn't just respond. He wants to open the book. So he would sit down and he'd open his book, and I'd open my book, and the books looked similar. Mine was kind of worn and his was kind of worn. And I'd open up the book, and then he'd read, and it wouldn't be exactly what was in my NIV. And I'm like, eventually I peeked over his shoulder, and this is where the crisis came. This is why we're doing Prophet Pearls. I peek over. Can I continue, Nehemia? Do you want to? Thank you. I peek over his shoulder, and in his book that looked just like my book, which was worn, it was like leathery, it was all in Hebrew. But he never one time mentioned a Hebrew word. He only was speaking in English. This was a crisis. The crisis wasn't a crisis for me. It was a crisis for me because I'm looking at the English. He's telling me it's saying something else based on his translation. And you know what could have happened right then? This is really funny. I've never said it this way. What could have happened right then is you could have become my sage. You could have become my rabbi, Nehemia. I would go to you with all the questions, and you'd give me all the answers, and I would never check it for myself. But the crisis came that I said, if Nehemia is reading directly from Hebrew and translating, it seems to me that if the Bible is that important to me, I need to learn to be able to do that. And again, why this has been so wonderful in doing this with you is that I can say to you, well, can you read the verse? And what you do is you'll give us the English translation. Now, to be fair, there are times where you're making translation decisions, obviously, because the English language.
I think always by definition I'm making
translation decisions. But the great
every time I translate the word Devorah as word versus thing versus matter, that's the translation decision.
Absolutely. But here's what I do like is what I'd like for people to do is when we do have a translation or you're bringing out a translation, I want people to check it for themselves. Now again, people may not want to go through the same process that I had to go through. I had to go through a whole. I don't know, the Nehemia Gordon make you feel like a dummy school, but I mean, what was great about it is that we would go step by step by step.
Didn't you feel smart in the end when you passed the test?
Yeah, in this passage, I'm going to get you. But anyway, listen. So here's the point. Now, for this verse, could you now read the verse? We got the context. Could you give us a translation?
After that long introduction, I don't even know what verse we're in.
We're in verse 8 now because you're going to translate verse 8 because maybe there's something missing that I'm. Yeah. Go ahead here.
All right, I'm just to translate it from Hebrew. It says, and Barak said to her, if you go with me, I will go, and if you will not go with me, I will not go. And she said, I will surely...
Stop. Wait, no, hold on. So Barak now is the head of the military. He's large, he's in charge. He's the head of the Joint Chiefs Staff. So first of all, she calls him, he comes, she tells him the instruction, he says it, and then here comes the crisis moment. The crisis moment is the big military commander says, I'm not going without you. Am I missing anything there?
No, you got it.
Okay,
and why isn't he going without her?
Go ahead, next.
What's the answer?
Next verse. Go ahead to the next.
Well, why is he going without her?
We have to find out.
Why does he refuse to go without her? It's because of the 900 iron chariots. He realizes, I got no chance without you. What are you talking about? You're speaking the word of God. I'm just this, I just know how to throw a spear and and fire arrows, and they got 900 iron chariots. I need my asset here. And the point was that if God told him to go, he shouldn't have needed this person to be a symbol of God. God should have been enough for him.
Okay. Well, here's how she.
So verse 9.
Yes.
And she said, or do you want to read it?
I want to give verse 9, folks, because I think this again, and I love the Bible. I love this. If you read the Bible, sometimes it doesn't matter without the Hebrew, the Greek, the Aramaic, the Arabic, the German, all this stuff. Sometimes it's just kind of clear. So no matter what translation you're looking in, there's this issue. The leader calls the commander, gives him instruction. The commander says, I ain't going nowhere without you. I need your help, your backup, your blessing, your whatever it is that you are. I'm not going into war without you. And then she says, I will go with you, but maybe there's a different word there.
Translate that, but yeah.
Okay. But because of the way you are going about this, what do you mean by that? Maybe there's something there. What does it say, Nehemia? Translate that section.
And she said, I will surely go with you, but because your glory will not be according to the way which you go,
come on,
meaning militarily, but in the hand of a woman, Yehovah will deliver or literally sell Sisera. So she's saying you're not. It's.
I love this.
Wait, okay, so, give your interpretation.
No. So basically, she's saying, okay, listen, all right. So you were going to go. You'd have been put in the Hall of Fame of military leaders for this big battle. But because of the way that you're doing this, and because you say you got to have me go with you, it will be into the hand of a woman that this victory will come. In other words, this situation in the end is going to be in the book. In 2014 or 2015, whatever year this is, there's going to be two guys in Prophet Pearls talking about not Barak who won the war, but because of the woman. It was the woman's hand that he handed this victory to. And why was that? Because he said, and at this point I'm pretty convinced he's not looking at whether she's a woman or not. He's looking at the fact that she's the one that's the prophet, hearing from the word of Hobab. The instruction is clear, and she's saying it's almost like the issue of the ark. I'm not going into the battle without the presence. I'm not going to the battle without the help or the answer. Like, I'm not going to go do this unless you come with me. And I just have to say, when I read this story, my blood gets, as you can tell, I mean, I'm a little fired up about this more than probably I should be, but I get fired up about this because I think it's such a really cool story that basically brings to the forefront just how important Devorah was in this situation. So that's my point.
So I think I love that you brought the analogy of the ark, because it's exactly the same sort of thing where they thought, well, if I have the ark, there's power in the ark, and the power was never in the ark. The power is in Yehovah, who could be felt through the ark, and the power wasn't in the prophet or the prophetess. The power it's not in the man, it's not in the woman. The power is in Yehovah. And if Yehovah said, let's go back to what she said. She said, Yehovah has commanded you. God has commanded you through the prophet to go and fight. And so it wasn't enough the word of Yehovah. She actually he felt he needed this, this person, this human being to go with him. And the word of Yehovah is so much more powerful than any human being, than any representation. That's really what idolatry is, if you think about it. Instead of worshiping Yehovah directly, I'm going to put something up in front of me, a big idol, a statue of Yehovah, a golden calf, and say this is the God that brought me out of Egypt, because it connects me more with it, reminds me of Yehovah, connects me more with him. And he said, don't do that. He said, worship me directly. And so he felt, Barak felt he needed an intermediary, and because of that, his glory, really his honor and his glory was going to be given not to a woman, and it wouldn't be through his military might. It would be through this woman. Now, who's the woman?
Yeah. So who's the woman?
Well, so as we're reading it, we're supposed to say, oh, it's Devorah who's the woman. It's Deborah, the prophetess, but of course it's not. That's the inside joke. If you read the end of the story, it's not the woman Devorah; it's the woman Jael, in whose hands Sisera is delivered.
Absolutely. So let's keep reading.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So it says here, 10 months followed him, and then we're at verse 11. Can you read in the English version?
In the English version, do we read verse 10?
I'm sorry.
We don't have to read every verse.
No, we don't.
We're not going
to get through this whole thing. Go ahead.
Okay, it's long. Verse 11. We're in 4:11. Here, this is the JPS. It says as follows. It says, Now Hever the Canaanite, had separated from the other Canaanites, descendants of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, and had pitched his tent at Elon B'Tza'ananim, which is near Kadesh. You want me to go? I got to stop and talk about this. So we've got this guy who's the descendant of the father-in-law of Moses. Remember Jethro? And Jethro or Yitro, and then we have this character Hobab, who's mentioned, and then we have another character Ruel. I think we talked about that in the original Torah Pearls. How they're, according to one source, there's 7 different names for the same person. It's not clear that that's really the same person. But anyway, what's it?
And that's it.
We've got this character Hever the Canaanite, and he's a descendant of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses. And we talked about, I think in the original Torah Pearls, I'm sure we talked about how we have Jethro or Yitro, who's also called Yeter, and there's another character Ruel, who is either the same character or a different character. And then we have Hobab. And these appear to be different names for Jethro, or maybe Jethro's someone surrounding him, the father-in-law of Moses. So we had heard about in the Torah that these relatives of Jethro, they joined the Israelites a little bit sort of against their will. And then here they're still there in the land in Judges chapter 4. That's pretty cool. Hundreds of years later.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So, folks, for those who don't know, I'm now on, again, level 3, speaking from my mobile phone. This is now the 6th attempt for us to do this.
Are you on the hotspot?
I'm on the hotspot with no VPN.
All right, let's try it. This is third.
I think it's
this
funny.
Is like the 8th or 9th.
You're going to be going. You'll be solo on this thing, and you'll do an awesome job. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So let me just pick up from where I left off, which was in verse 11. So we've got this character, Hever the Canaanite, and he's the descendant of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses. Remember that story back in in the Torah where Moses marries the Midianite woman, and Tzipporah, and her father is Jethro, who's also called by these different names. We talked about that in the original Torah Pearls, I believe. Anyway, so they're still around. Like they joined the Israelites sort of a little bit against their will, and then they came into the land, and now we hear they're still around. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do think it is cool. And again, this is where the Bible is so amazing to me, because you'll hear someone and they'll say some name, and sometimes people jump over the name because they're like, I don't even know what the name is. But isn't that interesting? You see that name, the Kenite, and you say, oh, okay, wait, and then it goes on to say it's Moses' brother-in-law, and then you have the whole story of father-in-law.
Wait, does it say brother-in-law in yours?
It says Moses' brother-in-law, or father-in-law.
Wait, no, it actually says brother-in-law in yours, doesn't it, in the NIV? Yeah. So it's Choten, which is father-in-law. And what they're trying to do by making him brother-in-law is they're confused. They're saying, wait, we've got Ruel, and we've got Jethro, and we've got Hobab. Who are these different people? So they're kind of tweaking the Hebrew, and even though it says father-in-law, they're translating brother-in-law to make it more coherent, and not having to deal with these different names maybe for the same guy. That's an interesting solution, but it's not what it says in the Hebrew. So I just want to say one quick thing, and I know we could do a whole teaching on this, and I think I did it one time, on the whole issue of the Rechabites, who are mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. And if you look in Chronicles and you follow all the genealogy, they're from the same family as these Canaanites, as Jethro and Hobab, and meaning, these people are living in tents. There's a reason they're living in tents. They were never given a portion in the land. They were essentially, what the Torah calls sojourners, which means they weren't from the original 12 tribes. They were part of this mixed multitude that joined Israel. They were a complete part of the covenant. There was one Torah for them and the native born, but at this point in history, they didn't get land, and so that's why they're living in tents. Pretty cool, pretty interesting.
And then verse 14, here comes the commander, the leader, the one who's in charge, Devorah, says to Barak, go, this is the day that Yehovah has given Sisera into your hands. Has not Yehovah gone ahead of you? So Barak went down Mount Tabor, followed by 10,000 men, 10,000 that she told him to bring. Yeah. At Barak's advance, Yehovah routed all his chariots and army by the sword, and Sisera abandoned the chariot and fled on foot. So isn't that funny that basically the strength was the chariot? And in the end, he leaves the chariot and he's running by foot.
Right.
And it says he pursued him.
Hold on, we got to talk. I know you're in a hurry.
I'm just getting to the end of the. I'm not in a hurry. I'm just getting to the end of the last thought, and then you can go back to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, but Barak pursued the chariots and army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim, all the troops of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a man was left. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what happened? He had 900 chariots. You kind of glossed over that and said without the chariots he had no power. But what happened to the chariots? Now chariots, just for those who don't know, and maybe this is obvious, in ancient times, chariots, those were the tanks of their day, and they were what they call a force multiplier. So you could have 900 chariots against 10,000 people. Those 10,000 people don't have a chance. And besides the chariots, you also have foot soldiers. But those 10,000, those 900 chariots, they're a game changer. So how is it that what happened? What? All right, we got to stop here. Can you hear that piano playing?
No.
Okay. So I will try to ignore it. My niece is playing the piano. I got to ask her to stop. So hold on.
Can you believe he has the little girl stop the piano? I mean, she's beautiful. This is a part of the story. She's playing the piano in the background. Devorah was playing the music in the background for this victory to take place. He goes and tells her to stop. I don't understand it.
No, this is a record of editing.
No. I just told the people, I can't believe he stopped the beautiful music of the little girl in the background. It's like Deborah's music.
And can I tell you what my niece's name is? The one who was playing the piano and distracting me? Her name is Jael.
And you want to stop her
with
from
that
playing.
music?
Oh my gosh!
She drove a peg into my head with that music.
Continue.
Okay, all right. So
you're talking about the Iron Chariots?
Yeah. So the Iron Chariots, it's a game changer. So what happened to them? What happened to the Iron Chariots? Like we can't just gloss over that. So what did happen? And we can only figure this out from the poem. From the Song of Deborah, which I don't see how we're going to have any time to get to, but from the Song of Deborah, it turns out that
wait, before you do it, ready? Yeah, before you do it,
it's 5:21.
I want to do something.
Yeah, what's that?
No, this is something I want the people to do.
What's that?
You just gave a great. This is like a great homework assignment.
Yeah.
How do we know what happened to the chariots? You have to read the poem. We need to have people read the poem and see if they can find the answers.
No, this is
golden.
All right, it's there in the poem. And it actually sets the context, and part of the answer is actually hidden by your translation. I don't know if you realize that, Keith, but it mentions earlier in the passage, it mentions the river Kishon.
Yes.
The Kishon is not a river. The Kishon is what we call in Hebrew a nachal. In English, they use the word wadi, or actually in Spanish they say arroyo. And a nachal or an arroyo or a wadi is a channel that drains out from the mountain. It's also referred to sometimes as a seasonal creek. And so they might be there next to Nachal Kishon, or perhaps actually in a section of Nachal Kishon, and it's completely dry, and their chariots are very effective. But out of nowhere, suddenly, the Nachal fills with water and what's called a flash flood, and in this case, apparently overflowed its banks and made the chariots ineffective. And it could have been something as simple. I mean, it says they were washed away. So and to this day, you have this situation where people will be in these nachals, especially in southern Israel, but anywhere actually it happens, and they'll be driving like with a 4x4, Jeep or something like that, and the whole thing will just get washed away, and they're killed. A couple people every year are killed in Israel by these flash floods, and it was enough to wipe out the 900 chariots of Sisera and left him fleeing. So yeah, the answer. Wait, so didn't I just give the answer?
So now I'd love for you to be my professor in school, where we're about to take a test, and you say read chapter 4.
No, it's 5:21. Now I'm going to read it.
No, everyone, read chapter 4 to get the answer.
So it says the river of Kishon swept them away. The river of Kishon swept them away. The ancient river, the river Kishon, and in Hebrew it's not river, it's Nachal. Nachal Kishon swept them away. This ancient river, Nachal Kishon. So, oh my soul, you have trodden down strength. So it crushed them. This Nachal destroyed them, and it's an amazing story there. It reminds me of a different story of David, which we don't have time to get to, about Baal Pratzim. It's in my book, Shattering Conspiracy of Silence, where there's another situation probably with a Nachal and a flash flood. So I love the story. I'm sorry, it's great. So this force of nature at the hand from Yehovah came and changed the balance of battle.
Isn't it something? Is that you really do? And we started this thing some time ago where I used to say to these people these two words: keep reading, keep reading, keep reading. Well, it's become a shtick where you keep reading. If you don't keep reading and you just read that, you are kind of like stuck. And there are some times where you can keep reading and not get an answer. I think this is just phenomenal that that the poem, the song that we're not going to get a chance to go to, but the people are going to go to and get a chance to see it. But that the song gives us the answer. That is so cool. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You talked about your book, Nehemia. You said there's something in your book about David. What book are you talking about? You wrote another book.
Conspiracy of Silence.
There's our book, A Prayer to Our Father, Hebrew Origins of the Lord's Prayer. That's the book. What other book are you talking about?
So I have the book Hebrew Show versus the Greek Jesus, A Prayer to Our Father, and Shattering Conspiracy of Silence. Those are the three main books I've written so far. And in Shattering Conspiracy of Silence, I talk about how there's this battle, and Yehovah bursts forth upon the Philistines. It says, and it's describing water bursting forth like a flash flood. And so when David used that metaphor, he was probably also thinking of this instance that took place where the water exploded upon the chariots of the Canaanites. You write books, and what else do you do? What do you do, Nehemia? What's your ministry? You keep talking about just tell me what your ministry is. What is your ministry? What do you? So I've got my ministry. It's called this is the Ministry Minutes. You don't like us using that word, but it is the Ministry Minute. So yeah, my ministry is McCore Hebrew Foundation, and my website is nehemiaswall.com, and I write books. I do all kinds of audio teachings and podcasts, and go around speaking. Actually, we're pre-recording this, and just the other day, I was speaking in Tacoma, Washington, and it was a real blessing. I came here really to Seattle, Washington, to visit my sister and my mother, who's visiting from Israel. But
and your niece who plays the piano.
My niece Jael, who drives pegs into men's heads and plays piano, And while I was coming here, I remembered that a little over a year ago I spoke at this place in a place called Enumclaw, Washington, which actually was like a last minute thing. It was in someone's living room, and I was really blessed because when I left that place, they gave me this letter. And can I just read you the letter? I'm not going to read the whole thing because we're running out of time. But they wrote this letter, and it said in Hebrew "Toda Rabah," and then in English "Thank you," and it says to Nehemia Gordon. We, the undersigned, want to officially thank you for the numerous contributions you have made to boost our faith in the Torah of Yehovah and the Yehovah of the Torah, which I thought that was really a beautiful thing. And it goes on. It's the 5 different things that they're thankful that I shared with them and have worked on. Some things I shared with them individually, and some things that I've just worked on for years. And very few people ever say thank you. And it was a real blessing. And they all signed it, everyone at this thing. And so but when I found out that I was coming here to Washington, I decided to write them an email and say, hey, I want to get together with you guys. And so they end up setting up this whole big event at a church over in Tacoma. So what started out in someone's living room ended up speaking to this large group of people at a church. So it really was a blessing to me, and that's the kind of thing I do in my ministry. This kind of thing and that kind of thing, and it's a real blessing. So yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about when you say Ministry Minute, that's not. I'm going to cut you off because it's Ministry Minute. But if you just talk about your ministry, you can talk as long as you want. Yeah, no. So
no, keep going.
Yeah, minute is a relative thing. We're using the Hebrew word for minute, which is longer. Anyway, it's the Jewish minute. So the other thing I want to ask people to do is go over to iTunes, where 3 things I just want to drive home every time in iTunes: subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe is so that you'll get the program every week. It'll automatically download to you the Prophet Pearls, the original Torah Pearls, other audio teachings I've done, and rate and review. That allows us to get this in front of other people. So there's my Ministry Minute.
Awesome. Well, I want to say, really, folks, in all seriousness, we're at sometime in January here. We're not sure, and I have to say for myself, I'm not sure how we're going to be able to continue if the technology ends up being this big of a challenge. We set aside about an hour, and if it ends up taking 2 hours to do this, how that relates to me is that I'm over here actually in Shanghai, and we have in 2015 determined for the last couple years we added the word international to the name BFA, Biblical Foundations Academy International, and we didn't do it for marketing purposes. We did it because we really wanted to share with the Word of God with as many people, as many different places around the world as possible. And at the end of this calendar year of 2014, now it's 2015 as you're listening to this, hopefully, if this one ever gets up with about 20 edits, there's actually a bulletin that we created that gives you a really good picture of what's happened over the last year. It's called the BFA Bulletin. And in that bulletin, it's very high quality. It's a PDF that will allow you to go and you'll be able to view it and download it. And that'll give you a really good picture of what's happening with the BFA. But as I'm over in this part of the world, I'm really using this sort of as a base to go to some other places that it would be a lot more difficult, a lot more expensive if I were in the United States. So, for example, last night I was having a conversation, and this is a real controversy. People that think it's not a good idea, but I've been in about a year-long conversation with these people in Pakistan about going and sharing. They've got a group of people that love God's time, His Torah, His Word, His name, and they're in an area where their fellowship is growing, and they've asked me over and over and over again to come. So last night, I got to tell you, Nehemia, I was looking just to see what it would cost, and the price is half of what it would cost if it was in the United States. So that very well happened. There's an invitation to Africa. Just came from the Philippines. Actually, Nehemia and I are talking about the possibility of Norway in the spring. And there's other places, and not to mention that we have really a wonderful opportunity here in China with our book, A Prayer to the Father, Hebrew Origins of the Lord's Prayer, which has been picked up by the Lutheran Church, and they're going to be getting that out. So I may be spending some time helping to do that. But basically, this part of the world has its blessings and its difficulties. The difficulty is I'm behind the Iron Curtain, I call it, what I should call the Firewall of China. The Great Firewall of China is the Nehemia experience. Yeah, and the thing that's really difficult about it is, you've got over 1 billion people here. I'm in a city that has just about, you can't imagine how many different people from different nations that are here. It's populous. 26 million people that are in the city of Shanghai. I get a chance to meet people all the time that I'm able to share with and speak with. I'm here supporting my wife, who's doing a really amazing thing with her job right now. But I'm able to use this as a base to go to other places, both the Middle East and the Far East. And I have to say, by the time this program comes out, we'll be able to talk about something that's happening in Israel right now regarding some things that we did with the BFA, and that's in communication right now. I'll find out soon about that. Hopefully our next show, if we have one, I'll be able to announce that. But in all of that, we're trying to inspire people around the world to build a biblical foundation for their faith. So your way of supporting us is, one, go to bfainternational.com. You'll see everything that we're doing. Most of what you're doing, we're seeing there. You can just watch. You don't have to register. But if you register as a free member, you get to the next level where you can download PDFs and study guides, scripture bites, all sorts of things. And then finally, the premium content library, which we've thrown open the doors of the library, made it free for a 7-day trial where you can actually see what's in there. But if you do decide to stay there, it's going to actually help us in producing like 3 or 4 more major things in 2015 that's going to continue to reach people around the world. So I'm really excited. The BFA Bulletin is going to give you a picture of what we have done. Right now, Prophet Pearls is just one of the things that I'm just committed to. But again, the technology, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, and so what I have to say to you, Nehemia, you've been really patient. This show alone, we've done, I think, 7 different tries.
At least.
And if this one gets up and we're continue to go forward, that's awesome. So anyway, bfainternational.com, it's pretty easy once you get there to see how you can be supportive, and hopefully people will do that. Let's keep reading.
Well, I got to do one little statement about the context here, which we kind of skipped. I think we were distracted by all the disconnects and technological challenges. So this battle is taking place in a very strategic location in Israel. You've got these mountains in central Israel, and then you have these mountains in the north in the Galilee. And between those 2 mountain ranges, you have what's called the Jezreel Valley. And that is the central international highway in ancient times and even in modern times between the Mediterranean coast and the central part of the Middle East. Meaning to get to all of the central markets in the Middle East, you have to pass through the Jezreel Valley. And so there were always great battles that took place there. We have in the New Testament, it talks about Armageddon, which is the Battle of Megiddo. When the British conquered Israel in 1917 from the Turks, it was the Battle of Megiddo. There was a Battle of Megiddo that took place in the 2nd millennium BCE between the Hittites and the Egyptians. There were all these battles of Megiddo that took place in the Jezreel Valley, and here it mentions Megiddo sort of in passing. And Nachal Kishon is not far from Megiddo. It's in that same area, in that same valley. This is all within an area of 10 or 15 miles. It's a very tight area where all many major battles have taken place and will continue to take place. And that's where this is happening. Yeah.
Okay. And so basically, after this thing happens with the Nachal, he runs on foot. And he fled on foot in the tent of Jael.
Yeah.
And now again, your niece's name is Jael, right?
Jael, yes.
She happens. Yeah, so she's the wife of Heber the Kenite, because they were friendly relations between the king of Hazar and the clan of Heber the Kenite. Mm-hmm. And then it says in verse 18 that Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Come, my lord, come right in, don't be afraid." So he entered her tent, and she put a covering over him. This is really interesting. And he says, "I'm thirsty. Stop me if you need to. Please give me some water." And she opened a skin of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him up. "Stand in the doorway of the tent," he told her. "If someone comes by and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say no." But Jael, Haver's wife, picked up a tent peg. And I think this is one of the most graphic. This one is almost as bad as the one where they put the left-handed judge put the sword into the belly of the veal and the fat one over the belly. You remember that one?
You mean Jephthah? Yeah. Was that Jephthah?
It says here, and he drove the peg.
Oh no, that was Ehud. Sorry, yeah, Ehud.
Ehud, that was Ehud. Yeah. And as he went quietly to him while he lay fast asleep, exhausted, she drove the peg through his temple. Certainly, it says something else in the Hebrew. Is it really that graphic, Nehemia?
It's pretty. Yeah, it's clear. Yeah, she drove it in. Yeah, she hammered it in. Actually, it's hammered.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this guy is laying there, and she went and put a peg through his temple.
Yeah.
Barak came by in pursuit of Sisera, and Jael went out to him and said, "Come, I will show you the man you're looking for." So he went in with her, and there lay Sisera with the tent peg through his temple. And then the last word it says, dead. I mean, there's just no question. He died. He died. Now read the last verse before we get to the poem, because I don't think we're going to get to the poem. I have something. I want to do some Bible trivia. Can you read the last verse and give me some? I want to do some Bible trivia here. Okay.
Okay.
Can you read that?
You're talking about verse 24. You want?
Yeah, 23. 23 and 24. Can you read 23 and 24?
And
let me say before you read it, folks, here's what we're going to do. This has been by far the most difficult recording program we've ever done. 7, I think I count 7 different stops and starts. We don't know how the editor is going to do this. I didn't even get to mention the fact that we've got people who sponsor each of the Prophet Pearls. And the folks that are sponsoring this particular episode are calling themselves the Maccabees. These are people who are want to do this show in honor of the Maccabees that basically went in and battled the Greek, the larger army. And as a result of that, they rededicated the altar for Hanukkah. We discussed that in the last couple of weeks. These folks, we want to say thank you to them. They're calling themselves the Maccabees. They're sponsoring this one, and I'll just tell you what they're sponsoring this for. It's probably going to be the cost of about 3 sponsors just for the editing time that it's going to take to try to finish that. We want to thank the Maccabees. We'll hear from them later that they've sponsored some other of our episodes, and all of the folks that have sponsored Prophet Pearls. It really is not a small thing for what we're trying to do in coordinating this around the world, and editors and internet and phones and the list goes on and on. So thank you to them. Now, Nehemia, before you read these last 2 verses, can we agree the poem, we want people to read it?
Yeah.
Find the verse that explains what you already told them, but find it for themselves and see what else they can see in this poem that I think is pretty interesting. And then we'll do trivia. Go ahead.
We've got to talk about. You brought up the Maccabees. We got to talk about that. Yeah. So because what does Maccabee mean?
He's something he says we got to talk about.
What does Maccabee mean?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Talk about
Maccabee was the title of Judah. He was called Yehudah Maccabee, or from the word Makevet. Makevet is hammer, and because he fought like a war hammer. In verse 21 of Judges 4, it says, "And Jael, the wife of Heber, took the peg of the tent, and she put the hammer, the makevet, in her hand, and she came to him in quiet or in secret, and she drove the peg into his temple, and he fell down to the ground, or he sunk to the ground." So we have there the word makevet, the hammer, and this was sponsored by the Maccabees. You didn't want me to talk about that? Are you kidding me?
I love it. I love it.
And I wonder if Judah wasn't inspired by Jael to call himself Maccabee, because there was the woman who had, he was weak. He was a farmer, and he says, "What do I have? I've got a hammer. That's all I got. I'm gonna use that hammer, and I'm gonna win." And he did. Through the power of Jehovah. And verse 23 makes that clear. It says, "And God subjugated Yavin, the king of Canaan, on that day before the children of Israel." And the hand of the children of Israel went continually going and hard upon Yavin, the king of Canaan, of Canaan, until they had cut off Yavin, the king of Canaan. And I got to just really quickly just mention here, Psalm 83, verse 10, in the English it is verse 9, where it says, "Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Yavin, at the brook of Kishon," which is Nachal Kishon. So that's a reference here to this and a bunch of other historical events in Psalm 83.
Well, here's what I'd like to do. So, folks, we're going to ask you to read through chapter 5, which chapter 5, the entire chapter 5 is the actual song, the poem, the song that they sang. And I think it's interesting in verse 5, verse 1, where it says, "On that day," and it doesn't say Barak, son of, it says Deborah first, and then it says Barak. So she's first here, then him, and then they sing this song, which I think is really, I would do you well to read that. But I have some trivia, Nehemia. Well, I want to ask you a question. You're in Israel, and I noticed something.
Not in Israel right now.
One of the things I
Seattle,
noticed,
but yeah.
Well, you're actually in Seattle, but you lived in Chicago. You grew up in Chicago, and then you've lived in Israel for, I think you said 20 years or something like that.
20 years altogether. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that one of the things that I think that it's so cool is that the way that they, the people of Israel, men and women, young men and young women, go into the army, and I whenever I'm there, I always am sort of stopped by this whole issue of the army, and I've watched the deal where they do the where they bring the Bible, and then they've got their gun, and they go into the army, and they do this whole ceremony in front of the Western Wall, and it's just amazing. But one of the things that I think is really amazing is the whole use, the way that women are used in the army as men are, and one of the things that's happened in this year that's really cool. Have you ever heard of? Let me give you a name. Here's a name. Major Oshrat Bakar. Have you ever heard that name, Nehemia?
Never heard of her.
Have you ever heard of Captain Or Cohen?
Nope, never heard of him.
Have never heard of him. Have you ever heard of Major Jael? You probably haven't heard of this.
I mean, who's Major Jael? You're not giving me a last name. Yeah, but no, I haven't heard of him.
They won't give a last name on purpose. They won't give the last name on purpose. The last name has been disclosed. Why? Because this person is, for the first time in history, serving in the history of the Israel Air Force. A woman has been named deputy commander of an operational squadron.
Wow.
Her name is Major Jael. Says whose last name was not disclosed. And what I love about this, she serves as second in command of the Nachshon Squadron. Nachshon.
Yeah.
I love this. So anyway, she's serving there. That's the first time in history. But here's a second one. For the first time, a woman is to lead a combat battalion in the Israel Defense Forces. Major Oshrat Bakar has been assigned to the Etam Field Intelligence Battalion in the Southern Command. This is a really big deal because this is a combat unit. But the one that really caught my attention in 2014 is Captain Or Cohen to become deputy commander of, guess what the name of her patrol boat is?
Jael.
Devorah.
Oh, okay.
No, this is amazing. Her the name of her boat is Devorah. She's going to be in the area of Gaza, commanding this boat. And she says that my life's dream is coming true. So here you've got the first time in history a woman for the Israeli Air Force, first time for a woman in the combat battalion, first time the woman for the Navy. And I say it's not the first time. The first time was Devorah, who was the one of this story who was the commander, the leader, the one in charge. She was running the show. She set the stage for these other women who are doing this. And I think it's cool in Israel how they say that women are used at just a bunch of different levels. This is not something where they're off, behind the walls and doing something where they're not involved in actual combat. These are women that are out on the front lines of the Israel Defense Force, Army, Navy, and Air Force, and they're leading the charge. And as I was reading these articles about what was being said about them, the kinds of character and the way that these women are doing, I believe these women are serving in the spirit of Devorah, the judge, the prophet, and the one who led the charge. And I say, and again, I'm going to argue this. She was leading the whole thing. I mean, and then you got Jael, who wasn't afraid to put a tent peg into the head of the king. So you got two women in this story that I think just gives honor to women that are in battle, and these women are showing that message then, and then of course we say that Prophet Pearls is what happened in the past, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and today, right now, 2014, we're in 2015, 3 different women doing something that they say the first time in history. I say it's the second time in history. The first time in history where the woman led the charge in a battle is Devorah, the one that we just got through talking about. So that was my biblical trivia.
Yeah, I don't know what section you read in Judges, but okay. So I got to say a couple more things. I think these are important. So one is, why did Sisera, why did he go to Jael? And he really, let's be honest, he underestimated her. He thought that she was going to be loyal to him because there was this peace treaty or some kind of agreement between her clan and the clan and the Canaanites. And probably what made them trusting was they said, oh, well, you know what? She's not a descendant from Jacob. She's a Gentile. And they were wrong. Meaning just because she was not a descendant of Jacob did not mean she wasn't part of Israel. And she did what any Israelite woman would do. She killed him. So I think that's pretty cool. Here we have an example of somebody who is part of the people who have joined themselves unto Yehovah, Isaiah 56 and other verses. And then the other thing is this whole thing about the milk and the water. There's this idea that milk makes you sleepy. And I actually did some research on this, and the scientists claim that there's no proof of this, or that maybe it's psychological, because lots of people do say it makes you sleepy, so maybe for psychological reasons. I suspect it's all of the lactose, which turns directly into sugar and then drops you and makes you sleepy, especially if you're keto adapted, which I think Sisera probably was. And one last point, you talked about Judges chapter 5, verse 1. It says, literally, let me read you what it literally says. It says, Hebrew, the verbs have genders. It says, Vatashar Devorah, and Devorah sang, and she sang, and it says, and Barak the son of Abinoam. On that day saying.
Exactly.
So it's actually a singular feminine verb describing Devorah as the singer, and Barak's almost like this afterthought when it came to the song.
And in all seriousness, what I appreciate about this, story, and again, I wish we didn't have the technological challenges that we did, because there's more things that we could do, and of course we also have time issues. You're there, I'm here, you're in wherever you are with Jael playing the beautiful music with the little hammers that make the sound in the piano. I don't know if you know that.
Right,
those
they are
hammers,
aren't they?
Yeah, they are little hammers. And then I'm over here.
Beware of Jael with the hammer.
Yeah, Jael with the hammer. And so I think it's all a part of it. I really do want to ask people to be in prayer for us. Sometimes you can make assumptions of what they get the end result of what you do, and they don't always see what happens behind the scenes. If this one is up and you're listening to this one, it took nothing short of a. I don't even know how our editor is going to do this, but basically, if you're up and listening to this, and this actually ends up being as a part of the Prophet Pearls, you should give thanks to our editor and to our patience and to the technology as it works, etc. So, if you don't have anything else, I want to challenge people to read. I do
have one other thing. I want to talk about verse 20 of chapter 5, and I'm going to end with that. And it says, Min shamayim nilchamu hakochavim misilotam nilchamu im Sisera. From heaven, the stars from their courses battled. They battled with Sisera. And what does that mean? The stars battled. And we could probably come up with all kinds of creative, explanations that maybe there was a comet that fell, and that's why the Kishon River overflowed with water. I don't know, but definitely it was from heaven. It was from God that this happened. That's what that's what that means. And I think that's important, that whenever we have a great victory in our lives, that we remember that it is from Yehovah. That Yehovah is the one who is the source of victory, and it's not some person that we put in front of us and say, "Oh, she told me that it was Yehovah's word, so I need this person. I can't do it without the human." It's Yehovah himself. He is the one, and he will make it happen. We don't need the human beings. Trust in Yehovah, not in man, as the psalmist says.
Amen. So I prayed last week. You pray this week. I'll pray next week if there's a show.
Beseder. Yehovah Avinu Shabashamayim, Yehovah our Father in heaven, we ask that you bring victory from heaven in all that we are doing, in our ministries and in our lives, and in the lives of all those who are listening to this program and calling upon your name. As is written, Karov Yehovah lechol korav. Yehovah is close to all who call him, lechol asher yika'u ve'emet, to all who call him in peace. Yehovah, mobilize the very stars of heaven against your enemies and against those who are trying to stop us from living in accordance with your Torah and honoring your name, Yehovah. May this be your will. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to Prophet Pearls with Nehemia Gordon and Keith Johnson. For more information, please visit nehemiaswall.com and bfainternational.com.